This build is out-dueling god roll immortals in PvP, making its users immortal in PvE, generating enough orbs of power to use your super faster than your grenade, supplying the user with Devour, Invisibility, Overshield, Suppression, Volatile, and Weaken. That's all of the Void verbs if you are counting, all at once. It's capable of being run on Hunter, Warlock, and Titan, and get this, Bungie is about to buff it. This is one of those builds that is experiencing a perfect storm of artifact mods, buffs, and sandbox changes that make it into the single strongest build you can run in the game. In other words, it's power creep incarnate. I'm feeling so good about this build, I'll be giving away a $20 Chipotle gift card to a random subscriber at the end of this week. So just subscribe and leave a comment for your chance to enter. Let's get going. I will start with my favorite class to use this build with, Hunter, but I will discuss at the end how you can easily adapt this over to your Warlocks and your Titans, so stick around for that. This build starts with our dodge, which we have augmented with the aspect Vanishing Step, which reads simply, dodging makes you invisible, and the Reaper mod, a 3-cost class item mod, which grants us an Orb of Power after using our class ability, in this case our Invisible Dodge. This Orb of Power is like a lit match in the gallon of gasoline for this build, because just by picking up this Orb of Power, the build is now at maximum power. We are going to use this orb to power up our Wavesplitter, which, besides its normal oscillating power, gains a period of maximum damage charge and a suppressing beam after picking up this orb. The suppression effect is pretty quick as well. Quick enough that even with my 20 damage shot at 1,000 rounds per minute in PvP, which drops our TTK to a staggering 0.5 second at over 30 meters, it will still trigger. While we're at it, let's quickly talk some numbers in PvP. Wavesplitter, like most trace rifles, have an extremely high aim assistance and recoil direction by default. For Wavesplitter, it's 100 for both. Its handling is average, 46, and of course, we already mentioned its good range, which here is 67, which is beautifully complemented by the nearly maxed out stability of 96. On average, this weapon's optimal TTK is 0.67 seconds, already faster than every archetype of hand cannon, auto rifle, and scout, and all but the highest of impact of pulse rifles. Of course, its only major drawback here is that it needs special ammo. You will spawn with around 50 rounds, and every subsequent brick you pick up will allot you 29. Most kills are around 15 shots to kill, but optimally you will only need 11. If you can be wise about your ammo consumption, the Wavesplitter at base power can easily compete with everything but extreme ranged insta-kills like shotguns and snipers with ease. We can do a lot with a consistent and free orb. We are already suppressing targets and getting invisibility on our hunters with the aspect Stylish Execution, which grants us void invisibility after eliminating a target affected by any type of debuff, which includes Volatile, Weaken, or in Wavesplitter's case, Suppression. To keep our Void buff running, we are synergizing it with the Echo of Persistence, which makes our Void debuffs last a bit longer, about 2 seconds for our invisibility. It's not often we have such free access to suppression, so we are doubling down on this with the Echo of Domineering, which grants increased mobility and a full reload after damaging a target. And while we're at it, let's throw the suppression grenade on there as well. In enemy-dense environments like PvE, this fragment means we literally never need to reload again, especially since we are using the marksman's dodge to reload while we are dodging. Let's double down on our damage while we're at it and run this with a Void Surge mod on our boots, which grants us a bonus to our Void weapons while we are charged with light. And because of our artifact, we can make this cost only 1, making stacking 2 of them very possible right alongside our Absolution mod, which grants us ability energy to all our abilities after picking up our orb. With all this talk of orb pickup, let's also equip the Echo of Starvation, which grants us Devour after an orb pickup. Now we still have 1 fragment slot available, and this is how intense this build is. The last slot is completely up to personal preference. With all this power, how you choose to express your taste is in your control. Personally, I run Echo of Leeching for healing on melee kills in PvP, so for when I'm in a pinch, and Echo of Cessation for void breaches after Wavesplitter kills in PvE. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention the volatile rounds? Volatile Flow is a 4th slot artifact mod which grants volatile rounds to all our void weapons after an orb pickup. That was quite a lot of orb stuff, so let's recap everything so far. We start with a dodge which grants us invisibility, and an orb of power on that following weapon kill. Off of that simple orb of power, we gain suppression and double bonus Wavesplitter damage from its exotic perk and our void surges, invisibility from our stylus execution, devour, a free reload, bonus mobility, and void breaches from our fragments, and volatile rounds from our artifact. But we are still missing one last part of any good Destiny build, our exotic armor. You may have noticed that my dodge ability is coming back abnormally fast in PvP, and you can see the metric ton of orbs I'm generating in PvE. Moreover, you might be wondering how it's possible we can have a build that can be run on all 3 classes with nearly identical results. This is from the Aeon Cult exotic armor pieces. These exotic armors are the only exotics that have the exact same exotic armor effect on all 3 classes, of which we can pick and choose between 3 different mods depending on what our team needs. For PvP, we can generate free class ability energy from the Sect of Vigor, which grants 25% class ability energy anytime an ally dies anywhere on the map. You can be back in spawn and a friendly can be in their spawn, you will still get 25% energy. So in 6v6, that means that if just 4 teammates die, you have a fully recharged dodge ready to go. It's like having a built-in comeback mechanic if you're losing, and if you're in a smaller 3v3 mode with like revives like trials, resurrecting an ally grants you 100% of your class ability back as well. And if that weren't enough, when we do finally use our super, all nearby allies gain healing, allowing us to use our super in ways that might not have been feasible before. But every single one of the Aeon exotic options work flawlessly with our build. Obviously, we have the Sect of Vigor for more class ability and thus more orbs and thus more buffs, but if we swapped it over to the Sect of Force, after just 4 headshots, we gain 6 seconds of increased reload speed and handling, and when we stun a champion, it grants all of our allies 50% energy to both their grenade and their melee. Oh yeah, let's talk about champions real quick. While we have our buff with just the Wavesplitter alone, we can handle both Overload and Barrier champions, meaning we could slot our kinetic weapon to some type of unstoppable if we really wanted to have literally all of our bases covered. I think this really highlights the true strength of this build. It's able to cover almost every single requirement you might need, and the only mechanic you really have to be aware of is dodging before a fight and of course picking up the Orb of Power. Once you do that, it's easy to ignore almost any non-instant kill source of damage with Devour and the Fragment Echo of Vigilance if you want that overshield. You can completely ignore big groups of enemies because of Volatile. You can ignore 66% of champions with the Suppression and the Volatile, and you are able to pick and choose what fights you do take with invisibility. The last mod is my personal favorite for PvE, the Sect of Insight. Precision weapon multi-kills, 2 of them to be precise, grant an Orb of Power to allies. If you finish an elite, your team gets special ammo. If you supersize that to a mini-boss or a champion, your team gets heavy ammo. Effectively, this mod will scale with whatever activity and difficulty you are engaging in. Higher density of enemies, more orbs for multi-kills, more beefier enemies with yellow health bars, more special and heavy for your team. At this point, it might be easier to list what this build can't do rather than what it can do. I think the next best adaption for this build is on Titan. With Titan, we swap out our invisible dodge for an overshield barricade with the aspect Bastion, and we gain more benefit from the Volatile Flow mod with the Control Demolition aspect, which grants health to all nearby allies when a volatile explosion goes off, allowing us to play a sort of combat medic. And for Warlocks, we are going to be using this with the Child of the Old Gods for free damage and with the weaken effect from our little Void buddy. And here we can choose to either double down on the Devour effect with Feed the Void, or we can choose our grenades with Chaos Accelerant. Quite frankly, everyone, I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of what this build is capable of. It's incredible to me that this amount of power is present with just a handful of choices. In fact, you probably have noticed we didn't mention any mods for the chest, or the arms, or the helmets, simply because they're just the cherry on top of this 4-course sundae that this build gives us. Heck, The fact that this build is strong in both PvP and PvE with no necessary changes should speak volumes. If you enjoyed this build, subscribe for more, and don't forget to leave a comment for your chance at burrito money. Bless your faces, and deuces.